why you are not promoting the public API network as much as it should be. It removes the pain of the developers. Developers are loving it. But all the developers they know about is that small window that Postman is there. Oh, Postman means that small window. No, man. Do you still write code in your company?
I remember I took a vacation for a week. I was young. I was probably 24, 25. I took a vacation for a week, and then everything fell apart. Like nothing got done for a week. No one knew where anything was. No one knew what to do. And my boss was like, "What happened? What? Like what did you do?"
If you are building a great team, you don't need to be the best person. You need to be a best listener.
I'm not sure this is actually good advice. I think this might be like a generational thing because I remember when I was writing C and C++ code and I worked with a lot of people who wrote Fortran and assembly, they're like, you're not writing real code. So this might be one of those moments.
But hey,
Yeah,
once a coder, always a coder. Hey there, everyone. My name is Hitesh, and welcome to the YouTube channel again. I hope you are very, very excited with the today's session as well. As I promised you, I'm bringing in so many more guests so that you can get an idea exactly and directly from the people's uh, whole mindset about what they're doing, how they're doing. And as you know, this channel revolves and rotates around developers. We are all developer focused and developer first channel. So if you are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you're already up here, leave a comment section who would like to see next. And uh, from where you're watching, I would love to know which city you're watching this video. So hit down in the comment section and let me know the city from where you're watching. Today we have another guest, really, really amazing person. You will learn so many things, tons of things from him, and the work he's doing is absolutely fascinating and also is in the front line of what people are doing. So we have Noah with us from Postman. So currently he's working at a Postman, but he has a long history of working with so many companies. Even if I'm not wrong, founding a couple of them, Noah.
yeah. I think I don't know if I'd use the founding title. I found this weird niche in my career where I found myself at large enterprise companies, but founding businesses within them. So yeah, it's not quite the same as like a true, as a true founding story, building a company. Because I did have the safety net and support of a larger enterprise around me, but starting new things, building something from scratch has always been a bit of a passion of mine. So kind
So
of
welcome.
gravitated to it
First
naturally.
of all, first of all,
Thank you.
officially, welcome Noah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the channel. It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure to host you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here, and really excited to chat with you.
Oh man, awesome. So we'll start with some of the basic casual questions, and then we'll discuss about what kind of work you do and how that work can help and inspire upcoming developers so that they can know about you, what the work you are doing, and some things that they can avoid. So pitfalls we can hopefully give them. It's very hard to give them pitfalls, but we'll try our best together. All right. So coming up, first off, the firing of the question. Do you still write code in your company?
So I don't write code at Postman. I haven't been writing code that's gone to production since about 2020. I was still doing it for a while when I was at AWS, even then having moved into like a senior EM or a senior SDM as we called it at AWS role. I do still write code though on weekends. I have two children. My daughter Lily, she's 10. She's not very into computers or computer science. My son, who's 8, my son JP, he really loves video games, and he's gravitating towards the idea of making his own games. So we've been doing a lot of game maker. We built some robots and some simple Python. So I think it's unfortunate because I miss writing code, but most of the code I write these days is teaching my son. But that's also very fulfilling.
But still, you are still writing it maybe on the weekend. But hey,
Yeah,
once a coder, always a coder.
always a coder. Yeah, I mean, I still have that instinct where if something's not working, yeah, even at Postman, I'll kind of like pull up the source code and say, "Oh, what's going on here? How is this supposed to work? How is this designed?" So
So
the
what was
instincts are still there.
so what was the last project where you worked on where you actually shipped the code in the production? I guess at AWS, if I'm not wrong.
It was at AWS. Um, we were in the middle of building AWS Data Exchange. Don't want to get too much into the background of that, but the basic idea was to enable people who consume data and people who distribute data to be able to do it natively on the cloud and do it natively on AWS. So much of that was still happening on FTPs, and so there was just like all this work to get your data into your cloud environment. So we're like, hey, why don't we build a service and make it native, and you can do it through S3 and Redshift, et cetera. So yeah, we were maybe I would say throughout the entire launch of that service, I was still writing code, but my approach was always like, what can I do to keep my team unblocked? What are like small things I can do to, maybe improve the developer experience for my team? What kind of operational stuff can I do in the background? Maybe some, not so glamorous work. What can I take off their plates? But then as we got closer to our GA date, there was more and more pressing stuff. So I ended up putting like, code like in the critical path, like actual features that we launched on day one. And I think that was scary for my team because, I hadn't been writing production code in a while. They're like, why is this guy writing code? But they were kind, and they gave me good reviews, and didn't give me any passes. And but yeah, that was a lot of fun though, I remember.
You're downballing yourself quite a lot, man. No, don't do that. You're downballing yourself quite. You are like the pro of the pro coder.
No, I started writing code when I was 8. So I started very young, but I also stopped doing it like as like my main job in my 20s because I moved into an EM role pretty early in my career. I like to say I'm like a really fast entry level SDE is how I call it. That's how I qualify myself sometimes when I think about Noah the developer.
Oh man, come on. On one side, people are fighting to have the biggest title, and we have the Noah who's saying, I'm an entry level SD. Come on, man. No, no, we cannot digest that fact. You are. Okay, anyways, firing up the next question. How big is your team currently at Postman, and what they are focusing on?
Yeah. So, if it's okay with you, I'll start with what we're focusing on, and then maybe I can kind of back into
Sure.
to like what that means for the product and our customers, and then we can kind of back into like the size of the team and what it takes to deliver, those promises and that experience for your customers. So just like really quick on Postman, just kind of want to make sure if there's one, while I'm talking about Postman, if there's one thing that everyone takes away from about that product is everyone knows it as an API client, and it's an amazing API client. It's not just a REST client. Obviously, there's other protocols we support too, but the real value of Postman is in collaborative design around APIs. We collaborate around code, we collaborate around documents. You and I collaborated around meeting for this session on Slack, and there's so many places we do that, and our customers have found real value in collaborating around APIs on Postman. So the area that I look after, it's called the Postman API Network, or sometimes also called the Public API Network, and that's when our customers want to collaborate on APIs in the public. So if you think about all the APIs you've used in your life, whether it's AWS, which we were just talking about, or PayPal, or CRM like a Salesforce or a HubSpot,
Oh,
they
my
offer you
favorite one,
APIs.
Discord.
Discord is another great publisher on the network. Yeah. Shout out to Colin. Make sure that he watches this. And those companies, what they're trying to do is they want to distribute their APIs out to the public, to the developers out there who want to be able to get started with those APIs really quickly. So what we've done is we've given them a channel to distribute their APIs to existing Postman customers and future Postman customers. And the reason why that's really so valuable is because, going back to writing code, one of the first things most developers do, I think, when they start building something is they look for prior art. Well, who's done something like this before? Is there reference material I can look at? You talked about pitfalls before. What other issues that developers, run into designing or building a similar problem or solving a similar problem? And when you think about using an API, all those same issues exist. Getting something started, setting up authorization, having an end-to-end use case and seeing it work, a full flow. And so that's really what we're doing on the network, and is publishers are able to get developers started in sometimes even seconds, because they kind of set up the API for them. So the client is set up. So they click send and they get a 200 OK, and they say, okay, like I see how this works, and they can rapidly invest and get deep on how to use the API. So if you take a step back there and you think about what's really happening, there's a lot of personas involved in that. So there's the publisher, there's the folks who they own the API, they're the producer of the API. So in Discord's case, there's the DevRel team led by Colin, and there's developers who are building the API, and the PMs want to bring it to market and get usage. But then you also have consumers like me and you. You built stuff on Discord. I built stuff using Discord before. I use a lot of content created by the community on top of Discord because I still play a lot of video games. Always a gamer. And, so you have these consumers also who want to use the API. So it's two-sided. You have the producer, publisher, and then you have the consumer, the person using the API. But then you also have these people who use the API and they want to contribute content back. So they're also just contributors. And it's very much like it's very much like if you think about, code that's out in the open and public GitHub repository, pretty similar to that model. And the people who contribute aren't always the same as the people who consume. A lot of people want to use something, but it's a different tier of person who sees a project and they're like, oh, let me make this better. So we're really catering to three personas. So it's actually it's very challenging to serve one customer. It's really challenging to serve three. But we're up for it and we're having a good time. And the team size. So I think maybe what's more interesting than team size is the distribution. We have a team in Bangalore, mostly in Bangalore, but although there's some folks in Chennai and New Delhi. We have a team in Europe, and they're spread across they're in the UK, they're in Italy, they're in France. Then there's some folks in Africa, so Benin and Nigeria. And then we have a team in New York.
How do you manage, man? How do you manage the time slot with all of them?
Hold on, and there's some people on the West Coast. How do I manage the time slot? I have to be honest. This is a new managerial challenge for me. I think this is the most. Obviously, every company is global in a sense. Previous companies I've worked at have also been global, but if I'm being honest with you, they were U.S. centric. They were focused on a U.S. time zone, and everyone kind of conformed to that. But we at Postman. There's so many teams all over the globe with these independent charters. We're all in service of developers, but there's no such thing as like, we're all going to gravitate towards, Pacific time in the US because business has to happen all day, for what we're trying to do and what we're building for our customers. So I've kind of had to adapt in a sense where, my normal working day is no longer continuous. There's some stuff I'll do really early in the morning. And then maybe, I'll get some of my personal work done because things are relatively quiet. And then as the West Coast is waking up, or maybe I get something, get some last minute meetings in with folks in Europe. And then maybe during the afternoon, I'll take some time to exercise or read something or, just take a personal break, eat some lunch, certainly. Then things pick up again later in the day, which my wife and kids don't always love, but it's necessary. So I have to do it.
Oh man, that is really in itself. Alone, the time management alone is a big task for you. But hey, big shout out that you are able to do this. And I really like one thing about the Postman that they are, especially as you said, rightly mentioned, they are not just Pacific time specific. Like there's a big team in Bangalore as well. And in the Bangalore team, they focus in their own time zone. There is no like overtime or something like that. They manage everything in their own time zone. And then the Europe team and all of that, I'm in touch with a couple of them. So they also say the one thing we appreciate about the Postman is the work culture. So I don't know how much do you agree with that, or can you shed some light on that? Because all I heard about is that it's truly a time-centric company. No overtime, everything is well planned, well managed, and we know what to deliver and when to deliver it in advance. What do you say? Because this is coming up from the junior developers. If they are happy, there is a reason, and the reason is definitely in the top chain that they are able to visualize the stuff, what needs to happen in advance, and convey that. So how do you do that, and what's your thought on this?
Well, I'm really glad to hear that from you. As a leader, I'm always worried. I'm always worried about my people. Are they happy? Am I doing right by them? And it's a constant anxiety that I have. Look, my perspective on this, the way to build an organization, the way to build a team that's able to function with really high impact is everyone has to understand why the work they're doing matters. This feature I'm building, this bug I'm fixing, how does this ladder up to the goals of my organization? How do the goals of my organization ladder up to the goals of the company? And why do those goals matter? Like, what's the impact for us? What's the impact for our customers? Most importantly, there's no impact for the company without impact for the customers. And I think there's really two components to that. One, you have to create an environment where everyone understands what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I can give you an example in a minute. And the other piece is you have to create an environment where charters can be acted on independently. So, I don't want to create a situation. Yeah, look, as much as I bend my schedule, and then also, frankly, the team in Bengaluru and elsewhere in India, they bend their schedule. We're not bending our schedules to gatekeep on decisions. We're bending our schedules to collaborate and touch base with one another so that we feel like we're making the optimal decisions. And that's really important, is empowering your teams and pushing down decision making. They're closest to the customer. they're closest, they understand best what we need. They know, they're, in many ways, they're actually, especially at Postman, the real user of our product. I think if you can accomplish both of those things, help everyone understand the impact, and then give them the room and the independence and ownership to make those decisions, you can truly operate globally. And that's one of the best feelings, because like I go to bed thinking like we're making progress, and then when I wake up in the morning, we'll have made progress, and then I'll go throughout my day and we make progress, and there's always progress being made, and it's one of the best feelings. I think I promised to tell you about a specific type of impact, but let me pause here because I've been talking for a while.
Okay, one question. I think that would be a little bit of a spicy question, but see, the first time I saw the public API network was recently only. I was trying to inject Discord in my own edtech school. I wanted that whoever buys the course automatically should be able to get a private channel enrollment. And through this, I wanted to read more about the Discord API. And crazily, the Discord APIs are all out there. Like you can do pretty much whatever you need. Those guys have exposed the entire of the API. First, I was in the Discord API section, doing good, okay. But then I saw the public API network, and I saw everything in the Postman. And I showed it to the team, and they were like, oh man, this is much better than reading the docs. It's just right there. Everything is there. We can even test that. We can mock it even. So why you are not promoting the public API network as much as it should be? It removes the pain of the developers. Developers are loving it. But all the developers they know about is that small window that Postman is there. Oh, Postman means that small window. No, man. The public API network, once you see it, and the Edian, the payment gateway service, the Edian, oh gosh, they are doing crazy job in the public API network. If you want to inject them, I would say don't read their docs. It is good. I'm not saying, but if once you see the public API network, it's right there in your Postman. You can mark it, you can test it. Anybody can work on it. So where we are lagging onto the Postman side, why is it not upfront?
Wow, what a great testimonial. I might have to quote you on that, and it's recorded, so I can point to it and prove that we have customers saying this in the wild, and I'll share that with Discord. We're doing a lot more promotion than we have in the past. I really, I think my joining Postman is a real sign to, not only the team that was working on it, but also, because it wasn't just me who joined Postman, right? I joined to work on the network. We also expanded the team. We made a series of investments. We acquired a company called Orbit, who works, previously had worked in the developer community space. You can kind of think of it as a CRM for growing and managing your developer community. So it's very important to Postman. So I think if you look at some of the hiring and acquisitions, announcements we made over the last year, what you're really starting to see is that the network is starting to become front and center, part of how we talk about the value of Postman, in particular when we talk about collaboration, because every developer in the world uses a public API. There's no such thing as putting code in production and not using a public API at some point. You may not think of them as public APIs. Like maybe people don't think of Azure, GCP, and AWS as these public APIs, and they think of them more as infrastructure. But at the end of the day, they're an API surface to infrastructure. And so, it's obviously we're obviously very excited about it. So I think you'll be seeing more and more from us.
Awesome.
And
I really
but also
want to see.
we don't want to toot our own horn. We want the value to be apparent. So
We found out
what we're
just
saying
because of
has
the
to match
value.
the experience. Yeah.
We
All right.
found
Well,
it
that's
out
great to
because
hear. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so
great to hear.
I wanted to see like that's how I came to know about you. So I was in touch with Patricia and a couple of other people in the Postman. I saw this. I said, who is leading the team of this public API network? I would love to have a live session with him. And that's how I came to know about you, Noah. So really glad to have it. Okay, so a couple of things. Do you travel?
I travel a lot. Yeah, a lot of travel.
So couple of countries we can mention that where you enjoyed, like, hey, these are the countries which if people are traveling, they should actually visit that. Couple of them.
Okay, well, I'm not just saying this. So prior to Postman, the last time I'd been in India, I'd been in Mumbai for a close friend's wedding. That was, gosh, that was probably 15 years before joining Postman. So maybe 2008, 2009, around there. And then as I was interviewing with Postman, this was like the last like round with Abhinav, like the question I was our CEO. He's like, "Are you going to come out to San Francisco once a month and then go out to India a few times a year?" And I said, "Yes, of course." Going to San Francisco is like an easy trip. It's I am on the East Coast, and that is the West Coast. It's about a 6 hour flight, but that coast to coast travel, I've been doing that for a really long time. So I don't even notice that anymore. But I had the opportunity to go to India several times since joining Postman. I joined a little over a year ago. I've gone twice. I'm going a third time in a few months, and those are the most fun for me because, um, I think I think it's kind of a superpower for Postman that we have this developer center out there in Bengaluru. And I was talking about this before. We're a company that's making progress all the time. And being around the team, and of course, a lot of the leadership team has since moved to the States, but being around the team where it all started is one of the most enjoyable feelings for me because you can kind of feel it in the air in the office. It's a bit electrifying if I'm being honest. It's there's a group of people who just take a ton of pride in, hey, we started building this API client, and now it became this API collaboration tool, and then I'm sorry, I'm doting so much on Postman, and we invented this new kind of product that no one saw before, and now we're at the global stage where every company in the world is using us, and you feel that most in Bangalore. And no, that's no offense to the San Francisco office, but you feel it most there, and so that's one of the best feelings I have. And then also, it's just a beautiful country. It's a beautiful place to be, and love the people, and also I love Indian food. And my wife doesn't, so that's when I get to get my fix.
Oh man, awesome. Okay, one good advice that you can give to people who are transitioning from the role of writing code every single day, because this is a part of life. One day it will come to everyone that one day you're writing the code, and next day you think, now it's a managerial role. I'll be leading a team of fantastic developers. They are trusting on me. It's a big decision that you were there once. Somebody was leading you. For some people, you look down. So for some people, you look, this is the man, how the leadership should be done. And one day you find yourself in that position. So you always think, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. Hey, this is the leader I want to work for. What advice would you give? I know it's a very tough question, but one advice that people can see and listen and learn from you, because you have been doing for quite a while now. So what advice would you give to somebody who is watching this and saying, hey, my day is here. I am transitioning to that phase.
Yeah. So if it's okay, if I go just briefly 15 years in the past,
All yours.
when I first started leading a team, I was at Bloomberg, and I made so many mistakes. It's like I think about them, and it's almost they're embarrassing, and so of course I'm choosing to talk about them on your channel. Two that stand out to me that I look back on and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? First, I remember I took a vacation for a week. I was young. I was probably 24, 25. I took a vacation for a week, and then everything fell apart. Like nothing got done for a week. No one knew where anything was. No one knew what to do. And my boss was like, "What happened? What? Like what did you do?" And I just again, first time leader. Look, as a developer, I had created an environment where people couldn't operate on their own. So I talked before about what a high functioning team looks like, global functioning team, independent charters and ownership. I was not embodying that when I started off my career as a manager. And I think a very related mistake is that I still thought of myself as like the best developer on the team, which is why progress stopped when I was off for a week. Because I thought my job was to be, okay, let me show everyone how to be the best developer, and let me do that by being a great developer myself. So I spent an inordinate amount of my own time writing code. And as I kind of watched that not work, I thought, okay, I need to read a lot of books and talk to a lot of people because this is not going in the right direction. And that was really when I started to understand the power of ownership. And I think ownership is specifically pushing down ownership and giving people autonomy and room to make decisions and treating all of it like more, it's a team sport. And if you think about how a team works, like, the team is out on the field playing, the coach, if you want to use that analogy, the manager, like they're on the sidelines. They're not kicking the ball. They're not catching. They're not shooting, right? Like they're not actually playing the game. They're on the sidelines. They're coaching. They're guiding. So what you're really doing is you're giving the ownership to other folks, and that is something you need to keep track of at any layer of leadership, whether you're managing a small team or you're managing a large organization. If you're not pushing down ownership, you're almost certainly making inferior decisions. And then what happens when you push down the ownership? Some of these decisions are really big, right? Like, um, um, I think of them as like one-way door, two-way door decisions. A one-way door is like a decision you can't reverse. It's hard to change an API surface. Let's keep the conversation on APIs. You don't want to break an API. As a customer builds infrastructure on top of you want it to keep working. So it's more of like a one-way door decision. A two-way door decision would be like, what color is this button? Um, and then that's also like a really important point. I think as a leader, what decisions do you audit? Where do you involve yourself? You want your team to be able to make reversible decisions on their own super quickly. And then it's these like irreversible decisions where maybe you want to spend more time auditing, or be more involved in the thought process. But even then, you're more of a backstop. I don't like making, my team knows this. I don't like making decisions. I like it best when they have a recommendation and they're aligned on the recommendation. They're like, hey, this is what we think we should do. I'm like, well, you're all really smart. So if you think we should do this, we should probably do it.
Listen to them.
Yes, definitely. That's a good
I
way to
also
summarize
learned,
it.
yeah, I also learned it a little bit of a hard way that if you are building a great team, you don't need to be the best person. You need to be a best listener. The advice will
Yeah.
come to you. Majority of the time, you just say yes to it. That's all. And if you know this is going to be a pitfall, you just put that hey, this is my experience where it had the pitfall. Now, do you want to go forward or do you want to rethink about it? Probably that's what I'm doing right now. All I'm listening is I'm sharing my experiences with them and I'm saying, now you pick the best decision. I'll just say yes to it. If you think all of this is right, we're going in that direction.
Yeah, I think that's right on. And most of my questions, would be, well, have you considered this angle? What about this? And trying to look around corners, and sometimes you catch things that the team didn't think of. Sometimes you catch things that the team didn't think of, but they're not important. And I think that in and of itself I call it like pressure testing. Like, let's pressure test this a little bit. Let's probe on it a little bit. And, like collectively we sharpen our thinking. But like what I love about that is even if you invest 20, 30 minutes, debating something, a decision, even if you don't change your mind, if you keep the decision, what does that 30 minutes really mean? It really means, well, we actually tried to prove to ourselves that this wasn't the right decision to make and we couldn't. And we tried to prove it by disproving it, by coming up with issues or reasons not to do it. And we still think it's the right decision. And that increases your ownership and your conviction in it by a lot, because you really sharpened your thinking and you're like, okay, we tried to prove this was wrong and we couldn't. So let's go do it. And you have that much more conviction about your decision. So I think you nailed it. Listening, but then also asking the right questions.
Yeah, sure. Okay, coming back onto public API network. I'm a big fan of Discord, as I mentioned it already. They have like, fan moment for them. But what would be the 5 products you would love to see that, hey, developers, go look at the public API network. And these are 5 of the products that you should look. They have done a pretty fantastic job, and this will give you idea about what the public API network are. I know, tough one. You have a lot of them. And also, following that question, how does the trending of them works? Like some of the APIs trend. Like I want my APIs to be trending up. What should I do? What should I keep an eye on that? How can I achieve that?
Okay. It's like picking a favorite child. The goal of the network is not to glorify any one API. It's to create an environment where everyone can distribute their APIs. So I just want to be
Not
clear
the
about
favorite
that.
ones, but hey,
Yeah.
these are doing good job. You can learn from them, and you can
Yeah.
also publish your API just like them or
Yeah.
inspired by them.
Yeah, I got to give credit where credit's due. Like we had PostCon earlier this year. We had an award ceremony for it was the top APIs in the network, and it was we also had the best new APIs in the network. And I would encourage everyone to go to postman.com/explore and take a look at those APIs if you really want to see what great looks like. Discord as an example of an API has done a great job building a developer community on Postman. In I would say the last year or so, HubSpot's in a similar situation. So is UPS. In terms of APIs that have been on the network for a really long time, that I think you may not it may be surprising to think about this, but they've invested so much in creating a great developer experience. So Salesforce is one of the most used APIs in the network. Now, of course, Salesforce has a huge developer ecosystem, but Philippe Ozil and the team over there, they invest so much time in trying to make it easy for developers to use those APIs and build more on top of Salesforce. And it shows in the quality of their workspace, how often they keep it up to date, the use cases they publish, the Postman specific content that they create, because they understand that there are a lot of their customers who are using Postman. And so they have an appetite to meet their developers where they are. And I think those publishers, and PayPal being another great example, Notion is another example. And when you go look at those workspaces in particular, I think what you'll find is someone really sat down and thought very hard about how to get a developer to a working API call really quickly. And that's something we think about a lot on the network. As part of the answer to your question on trending, seeing developers getting to a 200 OK is, we get a lot of satisfaction out of it. It's my favorite metric to look at because it means a developer had a successful experience using the client. Specifically using someone's, their public API on the network in the client. And those publishers have really invested the time in it. And I think that's when you see that something is trending, is when a lot of developers start using it. So when its views, forks, and participation and usage of it goes up, that's when you see trending happen. And I think maybe something that people also don't realize about the network is it's not obviously there's a lot of users on Postman, and obviously there's a massive amount of reach there, and there's also brand name recognition. But it's not an if you build it they will come type of situation. Nothing is like that in life. You always have to put some effort in, and the publishers, just kind of go back to what I was saying, the publishers who really put the time into great workspaces and advertise that they're on Postman, they have the best time, they have the best experience. That is the advice I give to any publisher who's new on the network. It's great that you have a great workspace, but then you also need to advertise that you have it because you're building it for a reason. You want people to use it. So go tell them about it. And that's really when the numbers start shooting up, and that's when you trend.
All right. And that's what you also need to do with the public API network. Advertise it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have you telling me that, and then also some folks internally. We're working on it.
All right. Two more questions I have for you. The first one. A lot of people are worried about AI. I've been beating this down like an old bush. A lot of people are worried about AI, but what I see from my perspective is a lot of people have started using the AI and they're very happy with it. What's your take? Why people are worried, and should they be worried? Let's just keep it very briefly. I know it's a boring question.
Yeah,
but...
I'm not an expert. I think any technology needs to be used responsibly. I think AI is an example of a technology that needs to be used and developed responsibly. That's what I worry about most. I'm not worried about a malicious person, but I do worry that maybe we're in a rush and we're not spending enough time thinking about some of the implications. So that's a non-expert's opinion on what's happening globally right now. Everyone seems to be in a big race to get to somewhere. I'm not entirely sure what they're racing towards, and I'm not sure that they can tell you either. It's maybe a controversial statement.
Noah wants to say, sit down, think, and then do it.
Yeah. But I think the technology is amazing. I use it all the time. I especially love it for two reasons. One, when there's work that I could do myself that would take me 10 times as long. I write an email. I'm like, oh, this is a very long email. How can I summarize this email? And then I could give it to something like ChatGPT. And I'll be like, I don't like how ChatGPT summarized it because it left out these one or two points that I think are really important. But it did help me realize what I think is important and ultimately shorten my email rather than me sitting there thinking about it myself. Obviously that's not just emails, it's documents, it's so many things that we do. And that's just an example. And the other application I love for AI, just kind of going back to a personal note, my son's actually pretty artistic, but we kind of create these assets when we're playing around in GameMaker. Who'll want to create a fireball or whatever, an image for something. It's a lot of fun going to Dolly with him and writing a prompt and iterating on it, and then taking that asset and putting it into GameMaker, and then he gets to see it come to life. That is a skill that I don't have. I wouldn't be able to draw these things for him, and he could draw them, and we could probably, obviously there's other ways to do that. But it's a lot of fun being able to leverage a tool like that to, it doesn't replace someone who's a professional, but being able to kind of get, some of the skill without actually having the skill is pretty amazing.
Awesome, man. One final question to you. Somebody who is starting to get into the code, I know it's very long for you. You did it way, way back. But somebody who is starting to learn to code now, one or two advice or tips that you want to give him that, hey, you are just getting started. Here's a Noah note for you. Take it. Maybe it will be useful for you.
I'm not sure this is actually good advice. I think this might be like a generational thing, because I remember when I was writing C and C++ code, and I worked with a lot of people who wrote Fortran and assembly. They're like, you're not writing real code. So this might be one of those moments. But I think it's really important that developers today understand how computers work. We have so many abstractions, and it's not that everyone needs to be intimately familiar with RAM and CPU and what a GPU does. I'm not saying everyone has to go get super deep on that and be a computer engineer as well as being a computer scientist, but just be wary of all the abstractions, because at a certain point, I think you're so far away from how the thing actually works that you can write code, but really being able to understand computers, distributed systems, distributed networks, you can't fully understand those things without having a sense or good understanding of what's happening in the bare metal, or your higher code's being run and executed. And I haven't been in a classroom setting in a long time, so maybe I'm just saying something that's obvious and everyone's already doing this, but it's, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it's something I've noticed, and something that's important to me, because that's kind of how I got started. I saw a computer and I was like, what's inside of this thing? And I wanted to open it, and I wanted to see what was inside and how all the pieces worked. So maybe there's a bias there, but I think it's important.
Awesome, man. Awesome advice for all of this. I guess that's all I wanted to ask all of you. All the questions that I had in mind, and I was very excited about the public API network, wanted to see how it works, the trending part of it. So I won't take much of your time. I know you are a busy guy, but thank you so much for taking this amount of time with me, Noah. I would certainly will be pinging you again on the Slack, on the Twitter, and a couple of other places. I'll leave in the description section your LinkedIn IDs and your Twitter ID as well, so that people can reach out and see, hey, what you are tweeting about, what's the next that's coming up. I'll also leave the link of my favorite public network APIs. I am biased. Noah cannot be biased.
Discord.
He works there, but I'll be biased, and Edian also.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Please do. Yeah.
So I'll leave that in the description section. You go ahead and check out, and you will understand the superpower that Postman is much bigger and has so many things to do apart from that window that you see. It's so much big outside, and I want more and more developers to take advantage of it. That's my goal of this podcast. So that's it for this one. If you haven't hit that subscribe, you have been busy in listening these deep conversations, so hit that subscribe now. And again, don't forget to tell me in the comment section where you are actually watching this video from. That's all from my side. Thank you so much again, Noah, for joining this up.
Thanks, Hitesh. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.